Understanding the importance of learning is essential to our world today. Every human being or animal learns differently from one another. No two cases are alike. Understanding learning can help our minds to continuously grow. It can improve our education, and it helps us to develop compassion when others around us are learning at different levels. I believe that understanding how we learn can also help with our motivation and our confidence. If we begin a job that employs hands on learning, but we tend to learn better by reading, we can communicate that to our employer to help us succeed at this particular job. A couple of the things we'll be covering are imitation, which is behaving in a manner identical to the behavior of a model. And we'll also be focusing on emulation, which is copying the goal of a behavior but achieving it in a slightly different way. We will also touch on reinforcement and the importance of keeping such rewards on a schedule. So let's begin with imitation. Imitation might involve a student, let's call him Ralph, and Ralph is observing a fellow classmate as they are surrounded by blocks that are all different shapes. There's triangles, squares, circles. Ralph's classmate is told to put all the shapes together, meaning all the squares together, all the triangles together, and all of the circles together. The classmate does this by stacking all of the triangles on top of one another and so forth. So Ralph is observing this, and then he's able to copy the behavior and do the same with their set of blocks just by observing the classmate doing this. If we turn to emulation, going with the same story of Ralph and the classmate, let's say the classmate still stacks all their triangles on top of one another and so on, with the circles and the squares. However, this time Ralph starts with the squares instead and decides to put them in a straight line. By watching their classmate, Ralph is able to comprehend what is happening and recreate what they saw, whether that is by imitating and doing exactly what the other student just did, or by emulating and still completing the task, but they put their own spin on it. Both of these processes work well way into our adulthood. If you have ever had a job at a fast food restaurant, you don't just guess on how to make French fries. You typically observe someone else completing the task and then you imitate or emulate them to recreate the same French fries. Imitation and emulation are a quick and easy kind of learning that allows individuals to be efficient quickly. It does not always happen on the first try, and we might have to watch the task multiple times before we get it correct. However, this idea is concrete and has worked for a very long time. While imitation and emulation are great in theory, they also come with possible setbacks, just like with any other theory in learning. For starters, if Ralph, who was mentioned above, is not paying attention, they might miss a key detail and misplace some of their shapes. It's also naive of us to think that everyone has the same kind of memory. Some of us need more repetition in our learning, and things do not always click immediately. Therefore, Ralph might need to observe their classmate stacking the blocks 2 or even 10 times before understanding what is happening. While the example I gave did not involve speaking, it is important that we mention language barriers. And that doesn't just involve people who speak different languages. But a language barrier might include certain words within the speaker's same language that they just don't understand or can't comprehend yet. Environment is something that might also impact learning for Ralph. If the classroom were dark, or if we placed the teacher in the classroom and the teacher was telling Ralph to hurry up and putting pressure on them, that might affect things. Even the classmate being observed might say that Ralph will never get this right, and if Ralph believes that, then it might cause them to struggle when attempting to finish this task. Ralph, our student, might also suffer from lack of motivation. They might be thinking, what's the point of this task, or what do I get in return? All of these factors might influence how or even if Ralph can complete the task of separating these blocks. So, how can the teacher of this classroom motivate and help Ralph to achieve being able to sort their blocks? This brings me to the scheduled reward that I mentioned in the first slide. The teacher might apply continuous reinforcement, which is a method in which reinforcement follows behavior every time it occurs. So, for example, every time Ralph gets a triangle and places it with another triangle, maybe the teacher claps and says, "Good job." This is a kind of continuous reinforcement that allows Ralph to know they are doing the task correctly and motivates them to continue until finished. The teacher might also reward Ralph on a more intermittent schedule, which is a schedule in which reinforcement occurs on some occasions but not on others. So, in this case, maybe the teacher doesn't clap until a complete row of blocks is finished, or perhaps they even wait until the end when Ralph is completely finished to clap and show their affection. So I've been using Ralph and his classmate as an example for imitation, emulation, and scheduled reward, but now we'll use an example that might pertain to adults. Take paying with a credit card or debit card, for example. There are many ways to do this these days. You have swipe, you can insert your chip, or you can simply tap your card at most places. But if you're out to Starbucks with your friends and notice that they simply place their card on top of the credit card reader, this might be something new to you, something you've never done. So you might imitate the behavior by placing your own card on the machine when it comes to be your turn to order and pay. There, you've learned something new and you've imitated another's behavior to improve your knowledge. We might pick up on learned behaviors that are not good for us as well. Many teens and older adults are turning towards things like vaping as a bad habit. We might emulate a fellow student by picking up smoking or vaping because we see that they seem less stressed. We can turn this behavior around, though, by using scheduled reward. For example, for every 2 hours that you don't smoke or vape, maybe you can allow yourself 10 minutes of screen time to flip through reels or play a game. We can reward ourselves, or we can ask that someone else provide the reward. There are good things we can learn and there are unhealthy things that we can learn, but there are also many ways to improve the good learned behavior and to improve or fix the bad learned behaviors. We can use our knowledge of different learning theories and techniques in many ways in our lives. Although blocks are not something we consider as adults, this example does apply to us as college students. Educationally speaking, we imitate and emulate other students daily. Maybe seeing our friends turn in their assignments on time so they can go to the football game gives us enough motivation to do the same. Our professors reward us as well. When we turn in those assignments and we put effort into them, we are rewarded with good grades. It's important that we understand just how many different ways there are to learn. While watching others and rewards are a part of it, they barely scratch the surface of how much we can truly absorb from fellow students. From books and from our professors, we can learn something new every day, whether we realize it or not. Our brains constantly thirst for more knowledge, and that is why it's important to keep our minds open to new information and to understand how best we hang on to that information. I'm Savannah Burton, and I appreciate you watching.